Mr. Douglas McGregor was on Tucker Carlson's show and he was discussing the ongoing situation in Ukraine. I would like to play you a quick clip of him speaking about this issue. It is something different, something that many of our leaders are never going to say, whether they're afraid or too corrupt to say it. It's the harsh reality of this ongoing situation. So take a look at his remarks and then I'd like to talk about them a bit.
Administration in living memory. We don't have anyone that qualifies as a statesman. Statesmanship involves advancing American interests at the least cost to the American people. None of that is in play here. We're dealing with a group of posers, people who are posturing. Posturing is not statesmanship. And the American people need to understand something that no one has bothered to tell them. That during World War II, Taiwan was the unsinkable aircraft carrier of the Imperial Japanese Armed Forces. All the major invasions of China were launched from Taiwan. Beijing will not allow Taiwan to become a garrison state for American armed forces or Japanese armed forces or any foreign power. And if they think that we are going to ally ourselves with Taiwan, if they think we are going to intervene to defend that island in the event of a dispute, then we will be at war with China for the reasons that I just outlined. And we are not prepared for that. We are grossly overstretched. We don't have the logistical infrastructure. And frankly, there's an old adage that everyone should remember. A ship's a fool to fight a fort. You have to fight China from the sea. We can't win that. China can absorb everything we throw at it. And the Chinese are happy to sit there, let us travel thousands of miles to reach them, and then sink us.
I don't know why every show on TV is not covering this right now. This seems like one of the craziest things that's happened in my lifetime. Do you have any speculation and guess as to why the Biden administration would want this?
Well, the Biden administration and its predecessors, frankly, treated everything that the Russian government said for the last 15 years about Ukraine with complete contempt. They're repeating that process. We see how well that's worked out in Ukraine. The Russians were always serious. Hundreds of thousands of lives have been lost in this war in Ukraine that we should have acted quickly to stop. Now we're provoking the Chinese over an issue that is at least as strategically important to them.
That's beyond belief.
Once again, that was Mr. Douglas McGregor there. I believe I've made videos about what he has had to say in the past, specifically regarding the situation in Ukraine, of course, pertaining to Russia. I've liked what he had to say on that, and I've also obviously appreciated what he's had to say regarding Taiwan. He's seemingly a person of sense, which is very rare in today's day and age. But let's get into his remarks. So he talked about Taiwan and its importance to China and a little bit of the history behind it, history that is largely lost among the American people. Need I remind you, Americans are the most, if not one of the most propagandized populations on earth. Now, this sounds like, insanely ridiculous coming out of a mouth of a person because they're so propagandized, they don't even realize that that's what's currently going on. But that is indeed the fact. Many Americans, largely speaking, have been fooled by the mainstream propaganda and bullshit that they're constantly berated with. And so they think that Taiwan is somehow of, insanely significance to them, and they must protect it because their dear leaders and politicians who are incredibly corrupt has told them that they must protect it from the evil doer that is the China, that is, Xi Jinping and the Communist Party of China, and they mustn't allow China to overreach and take over Taiwan. This is the thinking of the brainwashed American mind, and I'm here to kind of try to unbuckle that and undo what has been done by our insanely ridiculous and corrupted media and politicians that would otherwise like for you to believe something different. So Mr. McGregor went on there to talk about different military logistics, of course, regarding China and the U.S., saying that we wouldn't really have a chance at war with China in this sense if we wanted to go over by sea. All they'd have to do is sink our boats and destroy us. It really wouldn't be a difficult task for the Chinese if they wanted to embark on such a task. And I mean, it's all too true. As well is the population dispute. They have many more times people over there than we do here. So if there was some kind of long lasting battle, they definitely have the last man or woman standing, and they would obviously prevail. Needless to say, they're also another nuclear armed power. So war with them is quite literally Armageddon. But talking about Taiwan, and we can tie Russia into this too, he is entirely correct that our quote unquote leaders, these people who aren't statesmen, who don't act with America's or the American people's best interest at heart, they're insanely selfish, hawkish, and evil individuals. They have dismissed the Russians in their claims about Ukraine and their very genuine grievances, and they've essentially copied and pasted that same policy in regards to China and Taiwan. They've completely ignored and disregarded the one China policy, which on paper they've upheld, but of course, with Nancy Pelosi's merry-go trip to Taiwan, nearly sparking war, though the Chinese aren't that gullible, and we can talk about that in maybe a different video. Their response was what you would expect from a very strategic and intelligent place that is China, and it was extremely calculated. As many had predicted, they weren't going to fall for the bait of the American empire trying to get them to do something drastic like throw down the hammer on Taiwan. Their response was what it was, and we are here now. But back to the American government's policies, they've completely dismissed China's real grievances as it pertains to Taiwan as well as Russia's. And we see what's unfolding in Ukraine currently, and we see what has the potential to unfold surrounding Taiwan. And people like Mr. McGregor here is just telling us harsh realities. It's really not harsh once you look at it, but realities that the media in this country, as well as very notable political figures, would like to ignore and hide and stay away from because it doesn't fit into their current narrative. And they want to make this out to be China is the big bad enemy that wants to spread hate and take away freedom and democracy from the world. And the U.S. is the exact opposite of that. And I mean, if you don't know how foolish that statement is, then I really don't know what to say to you. But in a situation like what we're dealing with a climate catastrophe on the way, staring down the nose of nuclear disaster with two great powers, it seems like nothing positive can come about. But I do believe that if we can stick to credible sources and educate ourselves and really find out the truth of the matter instead of watching the insanely repetitive and rapacious media figures that they put on our TV screens every second of the day to induce this extremely effective, I might say, brainwashing that has caught the American people by their necks and is holding them basically hostage to this insanely horrendous ideology that Washington has to promote, that both parties promote, the Republican and Democratic parties. They are both the parties of war, and we're seeing that with their basically unanimous agreement as it pertains to policy on Russia and on Taiwan, or on Ukraine and on Taiwan. But this is Mr. McGregor offering, espousing different sentiments, different rhetoric than what we've been getting so far from leading politicians and media figures alike.